Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be guiding you over how to build Chevreuse, who is a necessary component for overload teams. Starting off with her kit, in short, all she does is reduce Pyro and Electro res by a meta amount when all allies are Pyro or Electro, and when they consistently trigger the overload reaction. She increases attack significantly when holding her skill and firing an enhanced bullet, which can be obtained when triggering the overload reaction, and she heals by a decent amount based on her HP when firing that enhanced bullet. Now, to summarize this even more, in practice, all this means is that you're gonna want to trigger the overload reaction, then hold her skill and fire. Then make sure to consistently trigger the overload reaction throughout your rotation to maintain the Pyro and Electro rush red. Also, her enhanced bullet provides a ton of Pyro particles when firing, but her ultimate isn't really that good, so make sure to switch onto another Pyro character after using her enhanced bullets so that you can funnel those Pyro particles onto them instead of onto Chevreuse. Here's how to save big when topping up for Genshin Impact's 6.2 banners. Lootbar.gg has a limited discount for the 6,480 Genesis Crystal bundle, alongside a bunch of other discounts on different bundles, like the all-in-one bundle and the guaranteed bundles. They also have a 10% off for new users coupon, and a 5 and a 3% off for returning users coupon. To save on your top-ups, go to lootbar.gg, choose a bundle, put your account information, then click Top Up Now. Then select your payment method, add or use a coupon code, then click Pay Now. In a couple of minutes, your discounted bundle should arrive. Now, lootbar.gg is trusted by creators like Genshin Impact and Gopa certified, and that has a 4.9 rating on Trustpilot alongside a bunch of 5-star reviews. Also, join the Lootbar Christmas Draw event for a chance to get a 100% off coupon and other grand rewards. You can get a guaranteed win for the first draw, and the first purchase during the event grants 2 times Lootbar points. So if you want to save on topping up, go to lootbar.gg by clicking the link in the pinned comment or description. For her skill priorities, again, her ultimate is pretty useless when she's being ran as a support, and so are her normal attacks, so focus on leveling up her skill and then her character level since it provides HP percentage, which is good because her healing scales off of her HP and her attack buff does too. But if you're using her as a Quickswap DPS, you're also going to want to level up her ultimate. For her stats, you're going to want around 190% ER if you want to use her burst every rotation, but you're gonna want around 70% less ER if you're using Raiden. Now, you mostly only want to use her ultimate every rotation if she's being ran as a Quickswap DPS or if she's using the Noblesse Obliged stats as a support, but you can afford to use her ultimate whenever if she's being ran as a support. And then for her HP, you should get her to at most 40,000 HP to maximize her attack buffs. For her supportive artifacts, she's gonna want the Noblesse Obliged stats if nobody else is already running it, since it increases the attack of allies whenever she uses her ultimate. She can also use the Song of Days Past since it provides damage bonuses based on the amount she has healed. She can also use the Cinder City sets since it provides around a 12% elemental damage bonus when triggering an elemental reaction for the element involved in the elemental reaction. For her supportive main stats, she's gonna want HP percentage or ER for her sands, HP percentage for her goblets, and HP percentage or healing bonus for her circlet. For her substats, prioritize her ER if you want to use her ultimate every rotation, then HP percentage, then flat HP until you reach 40,000 HP, then her crits. For her Quickswap DPS Artifacts, she's gonna want the emblem set since it provides a bunch of ultimate damage bonuses based on her ER, which should already be pretty high since her Quickswap DPS playstyle is already dependent on her ultimate. She can also use the Golden Troop set to maximize her skill damage. For her Quickswap main stats, she's gonna want ER or attack percentage for her sands, attack percentage or pyro damage bonus for her goblets, and crit for her circlets. For her substats, she's gonna want ER, then crit, then attack percentage, then HP percentage. For her weapons, Escofierce's signature will be her best since it provides a bunch of attack percentage to characters she heals. For an alternative, you can use the Favonius Lance since it improves both her and her allies' ER requirements. For another alternative, you can use the Black Tassel because of its HP percentage main stat. For an alternative, the Dialogues of the Desert Sages would be good for her ER and HP stats. The Rightful Reward would also be good for her ER and HP stats. And then for other alternatives, any weapon that can increase her ER and HP percentage and crit and attack percentage if she's being played as a Quickswap DPS would also be good. For her teams, she'll mostly only be used in overload teams since she's crucial, but she can also be used as a healer and buffer in OverVape or OverBurn teams. For her overload teams, she's gonna want to be paired up with the Pyro or Electro main DPS, an Electro applicator that can consistently trigger the overload reaction throughout the rotation if you're using a Pyro main DPS or an Electro main DPS who can't apply Electro before starting their rotation. But if you're not using these types of main DPS, you can just use a Pyro or Electro flex slot. After that, you'll simply want another Pyro or Electro flex slot. For the main DPS, you can run Raiden so that Chevreuse's ER requirements are significantly reduced, which would be far more important for a quickswap Chevreuse than for a supportive one. But typically, Raiden won't be as powerful as other characters like Varisa, Clorinde, or even Flins, so reducing Chevreuse's ER requirements typically isn't worth it. You can also run MiHoYo, but you'll typically need either a Yansan or Auroron on the team so that she can consistently regenerate enough fighting spirit for her ultimate. Any other Pyro DPS will all do just fine, with stronger DPS like Arlecchino or Klee when paired up with a Hexray character being preferred over weaker ones like Gaming. For your Electro applicator, again, if you're using MiHoYo, Auroron will be your best pick, but you can also go for Fischl if you're using another Hexray character. Other characters like Yamiko or Raiden will also do just fine. For your Electro or Pyro flex slot, Durin will typically be tied with Bennett for the best if you're using another Hexray character, and if you're not using another Hexray character, well then Bennett will undoubtedly be the best. You can also use Ayansan since she provides really good attack buffs as well, or Kujosara who doesn't buff as much as Ayansan but who isn't as restrictive as her. For her OverVape teams, she's gonna want a Pyro, Electro, and Hydra applicator, with one of these characters preferably being a main DPS. I'd recommend using an off-field Electro applicator like Fischl, Auroron, or Raiden, since she still wants to trigger the overload reaction throughout the rotation. Not only that, but typically Electro main DPS characters like Raiden, Sino, Varisa, and Flins prefer having an Electro off-fielder anyways for energy recharge. For your Hydro characters, you can use Furina, since Chevreuse's healing will allow Furina to generate a bunch of damage bonuses. Or you can use Aino if you're using Flins or Inefa, with Chinchuo and Yelan being good options as well. For your Pyro characters, you can use Durin if you're using a Hexray character, but you can also use Bennett for a ton of attack if you're not using a Hexray character. But you can also use Bennett since he provides a bunch of attack and he can act as a sustainer. You can also just use Arlecchino as your main DPS, and you should use Auroron for your Electro applicator if you want to use MiHoYo as a main DPS. For her OverBurn teams, she's gonna want a Pyro, Electro, and Dendro applicator, with one of these characters preferably being a main DPS, meaning that these teams will be pretty similar to OverVape teams, except you're gonna want a Dendro rather than a Hydra applicator. For your Dendro applicators, you can use pretty much anybody that can consistently apply Dendro like Nahida or Emily, so that they can keep up the default memory set when using a Dendro main DPS. Or you can also use characters like Baishu, who doesn't apply as much Dendro, but he does offer sustaining and Dendro related buffs. For her Constellations, her C1 provides decent energy for the active character, which won't be too important. For her C2, it increases her health skills' damage, which will only matter if she's being ran as a quickswap DPS. For her C4, it provides her skill another charge if she uses her ultimate before using her skill, which will also really only matter if she's being played as a quickswap DPS, or if you want to funnel a ton of energy onto an ally. For her C6, it increases allies' Pyro and Electro damage when healing them through her health skill, which will be an insanely powerful buff that is definitely worth trying to get. Now, should you pull for Chevreuse? Well, even though she released around 2 years ago and she's a 4-star, the amount of buffs she provides in Overload teams are so significant that she has maintained the meta status of Overload teams for as long as she's been out, even during the Night Soul, Freeze, and Lunar Reaction meta shifts. Not only that, but she is still a really good support outside of strictly Electro/Pyro teams, like in OverVape and OverBurn, and unlike some 4-stars, you don't need her Constellations for her to be incredibly powerful, even if her C6 is still really valuable. Thus, at least to me, it is reasonable to believe that as long as you have an up-to-date Pyro or Electro character like Clorinde or Arlecchino, chances are they will do viable amounts of damage as long as you have Chevreuse. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you wish to know more, you can click on the video to the right. With that being said, goodbye.